corruption and bribery. He has made bribery a way of life. It's a new normal in this country where he's bribing people on the loans of State House, where he's carrying money with sacks across the country. And he has laid it bare. So the police are asking, if the president is bribing people, why is he crying when we are being bribed?
Government of Kenya's stake in Safaricom PLC. Taken together, these instruments represent a dangerous and coordinated assault on Kenya's constitutional framework of public finance management, the long-term integrity of strategic national assets, and already battered public trust in state stewardship. They are being advanced at a moment when Kenya's fiscal credibility is under acute stress, and when the Kenya Pipeline Company IPO has demonstrated what happens when government asset transactions are conducted without transparency and without competitive process or genuine public buy-in. The National Assembly and the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning must reject both instruments in their current form. Number one, the National Infrastructure Fund Bill 2026, a solution in search of a problem. Kenya's infrastructure deficit is not a product of institutional scarcity. It is a product of execution failure, procurement corruption, and fiscal opacity. Adding a new fund to broken systems adds another layer of dysfunction with reduced oversight. As of 2024, Kenya proliferation, the control of budget as flagged as a major governance risk. Article 206 of the Constitution is unambiguous. All public revenue must flow through the consolidated fund and be subject to parliamentary appropriation. We underline that. The proposed fund risks creating a semi-autonomous financial reservoir where cabinet-level officials can deploy significant public resources without annual parliamentary approval. On CS Bandi's admission and misleading Parliament, these concerns are directly confirmed by the conduct of Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Bandi in a sworn affidavit filed consistently presenting the fund to parliamentary committees as a public fund subject to parliamentary oversight. His court affidavit refuted a wholly contradictory reality. The entity is not a fund within the meaning of Article 206 at all, but a limited liability company. One that had not even been incorporated when these assurances were being given to MPs. A cabinet secretary who assures Parliament of a 5 trillion shilling vehicle constitutional status, then swears under oath to his private and incorporated nature, has not made a technical error. He has misled the legislature on a matter of the highest fiscal and constitutional consequence. Of the Constitution, the National Assembly must summon CS Bandi to reconcile his parliamentary presentations with his court testimony. Parliament cannot pass legislation. The Cabinet Secretary has admitted under oath was misleading. Instead, Kenya should deepen its infrastructure bond market, reform the PPP framework, that is public-private partnership, 3% from 3.1 trillion to 4.9 trillion against low single-digit GDP growth, and strengthen procurement oversight at project inception, where the greatest losses occur, as demonstrated by the Social Health Authority, SHA, Standard Gauge Railways, GR, and Dane JKI and Catraco deals, the competency-based curriculum education, and the Rirone Mau Summit scandals. Number 2, sessional paper number 3 of 2025, selling Kenya's crown jewels for fiscal pain relief. Safaricom is not simply a structure utility, the backbone of Kenya's digital payments architecture through M-Pesa, host of critical government service delivery channels, and one of the most consistently profitable public assets on the continent. In financial year 2024, Safaricom declared a total dividend payout of 8 billion shillings, a significant share flowing to the government. To divest this stake, even partially, to plug short-term fiscal gaps to cover annual household shopping, the income generating asset is permanently lost. Yet the budget shortfall will reappear within the next cycle. Safaricom's network underpins National Integrated Identity Management System, NIMS, Huduma Number, Lipa na M-Pesa, government payments, e-citizen, and national security and justice and communication systems, reducing state ownership without clear to Parliament. The sessional paper fails to answer elementary questions. Who will be permitted to buy? Will foreign state actors be barred? What goals commercial shareholders gain greater influence? These omissions are disqualifying failures of due diligence. Number 3, the Kenya Pipeline Company IPO, a cautionary tale the government refuses to heed. The KPCI IPO stands as one of the most instructive object lessons in how not to conduct a government asset divestiture. The process was marked by pricing, questioned as overvalued, advisor selection without public, accountable, competitive process, modest retail investor participation, and weak secondary market liquidity. If the government an IPO with credibility and genuine market confidence, there is no basis for public trust that it can responsibly execute a partial divestiture of by some measures, or manage a new multi-billion shilling national infrastructure fund. Credibility in asset transactions These are Kenya's demands. On the National Infrastructure Fund Bill, reject the bill in its entirety as constitutionally defective, governance deficient, and institutionally redundant. Commission an independent constitutional review of the bill's compatibility with Article 206 existing infrastructure financing instruments of institutional multiplication. On the Safaricom partial divestiture, reject a full publication of all transaction advisor engagement terms and selection processes, commission an independent actuarial and strategic valuation of the Safaricom's national security assessment of reduced state shareholding, and hold full public participation hearings in line with Article 118 of the Constitution. On the KPC IPO and asset monetization policy, direct the Public Investments Committee to conduct a full postmortem of the KPC IPO, including pricing methodology, advisor selection, underwriting conduct, and retail participation outcomes. Suspend all this institutional framework before being entrusted with further transactions of national significance. Our conclusion: Kenya is not suffering from a shortage of institutions or financial instruments. Kenya is suffering from a crisis of governance. Call it blatant corruption. A failure of the state to spend resources transparently, enforce accountability, and protect the interests of ordinary citizens over powerful insiders. The National Infrastructure Fund bill will not cure this crisis, nor will the Safaricom divestiture. These are not solutions to Kenya's development deficit. They are distractions from it. And in the wrong hands, they become instruments for deepening the same elite capture that has stunted Kenya's growth for generations. The United Alternative Government stands on the side of constitution. (2026). And I thank you. Yes, sir. My colleagues here, of course, can join me in answering some of this. Yes, sir. Yes, Cairo.
Listening to your statement, you're taking more of your hopes on the 13th Parliament. And we know that the 13th Parliament so far, when it comes to bills, the Kenya Kwanza administration have been having the last laugh. Do you still have hopes that going forward that they still listen to your grievances? And if at all the National Assembly passes this, what would be your next course of action? And
by the way,
my second question,
yeah, there. Why don't we are aware that, and even before our late brother Raila Odinga left us, we used to openly say that the state capture of the 13th Parliament, every Kenyan discussion between Senators Methu, Richard Onyonka, and Ojieda, and they were very clear about the fact that the people's hopes are not in the 13th Parliament. This is why we have called this press, very important press briefing, because this is where people's hopes and expectations are. And if there be any members of Parliament, clearly with those within our framework, and there are quite a number, they should rise in opposition so that their numbers, every name, yeah, just like happened with the Finance Act of 2024, that everybody, right, a division should be called, yeah, a division should be called, and every person who stands in objection to this state capture and blame theft of everything this country stands for, then the Kenyans will be able to see, yes, member for this constituency stood with the people. But we are aware they may attempt to force. If they do, this line of action is you have course of justice. Yeah, because the courts cannot interfere at this stage, second reading, committee stage, third reading. The moment before this thing is signed or whatever happens, we will take it up. We are not just about to give up, because if we do, we are auctioning the future of our children. Cairo, your next question.
my second question was, I remember vividly before Christmas, you had promised as the United Alternative Government would have already decided who will be flying the flag. I know that is the elephant elephant in the room so far? What has been the
Cairo, there's no elephant in no room. Okay. You know, we cannot be that static, right? We will sometimes issue statements, and then after consulting, we may vary them, because we are trying to build a broad consensus going forward. We will address that issue. We want to give that assurance to Kenyans. But don't force it on us. Thank you. Kuna mwingine? Yes.
The culture of lying is becoming common. We saw the CS lying. We know other problems also lie.
Yeah.
What consequence will you be seeing from your side on this lie?
I think on the earlier question about the flag bearer, the only thing that is clear is that there will be one flag bearer. That you can take. In the year 2002, Mwai Kibaki, the single presidential candidate for the opposition then, was announced on 14th of October 2002, when the elections were to be held on 27th. This lying culture to an end is to send William Ruto home. There is no other remedy, because to talk about corruption and bribery, he has made bribery a way of life. It's a new normal in this country, where he is bribing people on the lawns of State House, where he's carrying money with sacks across the country. And he has laid it bare. So the police are asking, if the president is bribing people, why is he crying when we are being bribed? You know, he's the one who has set the standard for the country. And it's a very sorry state of affairs that can only be corrected on the ballot, because I don't think William Ruto can change. We have given up. I tried when I was deputy to ask him to stop lying, and he was very irritated that I can propose to him that we stop lying to the people. So I think there is no other way, there is no other remedy. I think we just have lies for 17 months, but the Constitution has set up a date to deal with such situations, and I think Kenyans will deal with it at the ballot on the 10th of August next year. I think you're Natosha. Okay, Moja.
Yeah, in terms of alternative, the government report in terms of bordering actually raising to about 11 trillion. What do you want to say about, the government saying we want to create this fund because we want to borrow for infrastructure?
I think it goes back to the earlier question. Can you trust William Ruto on anything? That is the problem. What we know is that they are creating a fund that will not go through Parliament, that will re-election. He wants 5 trillion shillings that is not approved by Parliament, that is not audited by the Auditor General, for bribing the people of Kenya. And that is the situation. So I don't think by anybody, because I don't think there is any proven matter that they have given a certain commitment and it has gone through. So I think that credibility issue is really very worrisome. Asanteni sana.
Add to that, David,
Allow them to go.
the second explanation is government cannot be doing business just as the private citizens. The government should not be competing with citizens in terms of making profit. So therefore, would you be standing in the way by opposing this sale of the state of part of the government shares in some of these entities? Are you trying to stand in the way of private citizens making profit?
I think first of all, just to go back to Seth Olale, the issue of borrowing. Actually, when you look at the instrument, I think it's clause 5 to A. It is for borrowing. But what is more dangerous is lack of parliamentary oversight. And that is bigger than the budget. So I think this is what we must take with a pinch of salt, because we know the people we are dealing with. It's a very highly transactional government, And the characters who are actually the key players in this have a history. And looking at what they're doing, or the extent they can go to make money, to commercialize, to put personal interests over national interests, even in Darfur, where you have the blood money, the diamonds, the gold, the RSF. You go all the way to the M23 in DRC, the diamonds there. These are people who can go to any extent for that extra money. What would stop such people from auctioning strategically what hopes do we have in this parliament? And we are saying it's not a matter of hoping. It's a matter of defending the national interest. To court on the 12th of March. So we will not just live on hope. We are responsible opposition. We are going to take on this government step by step, blow by blow, and deal with it. Thank you.
Albert Ojwang alipokufa, Rigathi Gachagua ndo alikuwa the first person kutweet ati amekufa. Saa hii tumeona huyu mbunge mwenye amekufa ameanguka na ndege. Rigathi Gachagua ndo amekuwa kwanza kutweet. Mpaka anacheka anasema amefurahia. Wewe utafurahia saa ile familia inaomboleza. Rigathi Gachagua kwa na akili mzuri. Anafaa